Simple Argparse example wanted. 1 argument, 3 results. The documentation for the Argparse Python module, while excellent I'm sure, is too much for my tiny beginner brain to grasp right now. I don't need to do math on the command line or meddle with formatting lines on the screen or change option characters. All I want to do is, if Arg is A, do this, if B do that, if none of the above show help and quit.
Here's the way I do it with Argparse, with multiple args. Args will be a dictionary containing the arguments. In your case, simply add only 1 argument.
The Argparse documentation is reasonably good but leaves out a few useful details which might not be obvious. Diego Navarro already mentioned some of this, but I'll try to expand on his answer slightly. Basic usage is as follows. The object you get back from parse_args is a namespace object, an object whose member variables are named after your command line arguments. The namespace object is how you access your arguments and the values associated with them. Note that Argparse replaces dash in your argument names with underscores when naming the variables. In many situations you may wish to use arguments simply as flags which take no value. You can add those in Argparse like this. The above will create variables named foo with value true and no underscore foo with value false, respectively. Note also that you can use the required option when adding an argument. That way, if you omit this argument at the command line, Argparse will tell you it's missing and stop execution of your script. Finally, note that it's possible to create a dict structure of your arguments using the vars function, if that makes life easier for you. As you can see, vars returns a dict with your argument names as keys and their values as values. There are lots of other options and things you can do, but this should cover the most essential, common usage scenarios.
Matt is asking about positional parameters in Argparse, and I agree that the Python documentation is lacking on this aspect. There's not a single, complete example in the 20-odd pages that shows both parsing and using positional parameters. None of the other answers here show a complete example of positional parameters, either, so here's a complete example. The thing that threw me off is that Argparse will convert the named argument foobar into foo_bar, but a positional parameter named foobar stays as foobar, making it less obvious how to use it in your program. Notice the 2 lines near the end of my example. Neither of those will work to get the value of the foobar positional param. The first one is obviously wrong, it's an arithmetic expression args.foo-bar, but the second one doesn't work either. If you want to use the foobar attribute, you must use Gatata, as seen in the last line of my example. What's crazy is that if you tried to use dest equals foo_bar to change the property name to something that's easier to access, you'd get a really bizarre error message. Here's how the example above runs.
My understanding of the original question is twofold. First, in terms of the simplest possible Argparse example, I'm surprised that I haven't seen it here. Of course, to be dead simple, it's also all overhead with little power, but it might get you started. But this positional argument is now required. If you leave it out when invoking this program, you'll get an error about missing arguments. This leads me to the second part of the original question. Matt Wilkie seems to want a single optional argument, without a named label, the option labels. My suggestion would be to modify the code above as follows. There may well be a more elegant solution, but this works and is minimalist.
If you want to support the channel,